Hi. So we never wanted to have to make a note like this, but we have sadly found out that Paula Acton has passed away. We would like to upload this episode in memoriam of Paula. She was absolutely wonderful to talk to. We had probably one of the best interviews that we've ever done with her. We know that she will be missed by authors and readers alike, and we just hope that you are able to enjoy and listen through to this episode. We want to thank Paula again for just being so lovely to us. Thank you. Hello, and welcome back to the Sinister Chapters Podcast. You are listening to another segment that we are interviewing a few of the authors that are attending Authors at the Armories in 2025. We are extremely grateful to be able to talk to some of these authors, and tonight, or today, whenever you're listening, we have the wonderful Paula Acton with us today. Hi, how are you?
Hi, good.
God.
It's. I was panicking earlier that the wind wasn't going to drop because it's been quite windy here today, but it has dropped a little bit. So,
That's
fingers
good.
crossed.
So we will kick off the interview with, again, a rather large question. What inspired you to start writing?
Oh, I think it goes back to loving reading.
Mm-hmm.
But I was one of these annoying children that could always think of a way it could have ended better. I always thought I knew a better ending.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually I then became, sort of as an adult, looking for books that challenged me more so that I couldn't predict it. And I found my early go-to genre there was horror.
Yeah.
It was Stephen King, it was Anne Rice, they were the people that made me really fall in love with character development.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then it became a case of the voices in my head were always there, but I just never did anything about it.
Yeah.
And I did sit down when I had my daughter at 21, and she was premature, and I had to give up work, and I had a lot of time on my hands, and I started writing my first book then, which is a book that no one will ever see. It is terrible. It is a genre that I am far too lazy to ever write in, because it was a police procedural, and nope, I'm not doing that much research.
No.
And then it sort of like got pushed to the back, and I sort of like dabbled every now and again. And then there was a big age gap to my son. And after I'd had him, I had some spinal problems, and I just got to a point where I thought, what am I waiting for?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was coming up to 40. I'd made some big life changes, and I was like, no, I'm going to do it now. And that was when I started writing my first short story collection.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
There's no time like the present.
No.
I think it is. I think it's so easy to just put off.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
You know, I'm busy. I'm going on
Yeah.
holiday. I'm doing this. I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And with the technology we have, I mean, when my daughter was little, my computer was the size of a small fridge,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
it had floppy disks, and didn't have anywhere near the technology we have
Yeah.
now. So I mean, that was a big thing now as well. There's no excuse for it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you can just. So I always say, if anybody thinks they've got a story in them, just sit down and start.
Yeah. Just let it the word vomit everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the worst that can come out?
Literally.
Yeah.
I guarantee that no matter how bad it is, there is still something worse that's being published.
Yeah, I can honestly say we've read a fair share
read
of
some
some
abysmal
that
things.
where you've read them and gone, what?
What?
What did any of
Why
that
am I
mean?
reading that?
Oh. Where are we up to? Oh, second one.
We are.
Can you share a little bit about your writing process?
It depends on what I'm writing.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm writing a standalone, then it will be a very vague outline and then just wing it through it. If I'm writing part of a series, then I am a lot more keeping all the notes and keeping everything in. You know, I know as a reader, there's nothing worse than when you're reading something and you go, "Oh, I'm sure he had blue eyes in the last book."
Yeah.
Little things that take you out of the story. So I make a point that if it's like I've got a trilogy that I'm part way through writing, and I have like 3 notebooks full of notes on the characters for that. I know their history, their backgrounds, their belief systems, and because it's a dark medieval fantasy, it's also a genre where it's quite important to know the background information because you never know when something's going to become relevant. Whereas if it's like a modern love story, it's a lot easier to write in some ways because as long as you know where you've set your story, it's easy to research and keep up with.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of doing the researchy bits. Got to be honest, I'm not.
No.
And my other pet peeve is names.
Yeah.
Fantasy names, I have that sorted. I pick a characteristic for a character, and then I go to Google Translate, and I put it in, and I transform it into 300 different languages until I get something that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Whereas
that's genius.
Modern names is so much more boring.
Yeah.
And also you're worried that you do know somebody with that name and you can't do too much to a person.
Yeah.
And give them the same name just in case.
Yeah.
It goes wrong.
Oh no.
My first ever book, I actually named the characters by opening a telephone book and sticking a pin in.
Which is, could you give us a brief overview of your most recent release?
Well, my most recent release was my Dark Mafia romance, the first book in a series there. However, it is a little bit back because last year was a right out for me. Unfortunately, I lost both parents last year.
Oh.
So life got in the way. However, this year I'm sort of back with a vengeance. I have a few projects to get finished off and back out. But obviously, before we come to Leeds, there will be a second part at least for the Dark Mafia romance, as well as a couple of other books that are in the pipeline. But the Dark Mafia romance is it's Romanians for the Mafia, and that goes to a friend that I play on a game with. And he left me he's a photographer, and we've been talking about something, and he left me a voice message, and I swear he sounded so much like a Bond villain. And I'm just like, that's it. Your voice is going to be, yeah. And it's a way of sort of like, gives you a little bit more flexibility than some of the other mafias. because a lot of the mafias have quite strict hierarchies, and
Yeah.
you've got to fit them in certain ways. And I didn't want it to be. I didn't want my characters to be stuck in roles where certain things were expected of them. I wanted it to be a little bit more flexible, and he starts off and you think he's the bad guy, and he is. He's not. He's not. He's not a nice person if you're on the wrong side of him.
Yeah.
But there's reasons he is like he is. But I also like playing with the ideas that in the right circumstances, you can make anybody do anything.
Yeah.
And my main female character starts off as quite a goody two shoes.
Oh.
And she is placed in a position where she is in love, or she thinks she is, and her entire world comes crashing down. And she does what she thinks she needs to do to save the love of her life. Except nobody's quite what they seem. And yeah.
Nice.
Ooh.
Nice. I do love a mafia romance.
Yeah, I've not read a mafia in a while.
Oh.
Yeah, this is about a bad boy.
Oh,
But
yeah. I try to aim for a mafia at least once a week.
I like to think that most people live in shades of grey.
Yeah.
That nobody's completely good, nobody's completely evil. Even serial killers, so there'll be a little old lady who'll say, "Well, he always took my bin out for me."
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I play with my characters. I mess about with them.
Nice. I like it.
I do.
Could you give us a sneak peek into your next release?
My next release is actually a fantasy.
Oh.
And it started off as it's been an idea that was in the back of my head, and I'd kept putting it to one side. And then I did a little piece of it as a short story for an anthology last year. And the plan was then, I'll do something else with it later. But then obviously it all got put on one side last year. However, this year it will be my first release of the year. And again, I like strong female characters. So the main character that pulls all the strings is a sorceress.
Oh.
And yeah, there's dragon lords, and it's full fantasy.
Ooh.
Love a dragon.
Yeah. Yeah, I do struggle sometimes with a fantasy, but I'm slowly edging more towards them.
Well, I think with romantasy becoming such a big genre now, it sort of introduces more female readers to the fantasy genre.
Yeah.
I think it's been quite a male dominated area for a while. But and I mean, of course, when you look at things like Tolkien, there are no female characters. It's he wrote about what he knew, and I think at boarding school he probably never met a girl in his life.
Yeah.
No.
True.
And I started the first book in the Lord of the Rings about a year ago. I'm only halfway through it just because there are so many poems and songs, and like I have to keep paying attention. And I was like, I don't want to have to think whilst I read.
Yeah.
It does lend itself quite well to listening to as an audiobook.
Yeah, I've got the Andy Serkis version, so it's just Gollum in my ears the whole time.
One ear.
Yeah.
So this is one of the questions, again, we thought was going to be really hard for authors, but a lot of them have absolutely chewed at the bit whenever we've asked them. So If you could branch out into any other genre, what would it be?
Oh. You see, I like to write a little bit of everything anyway. So I don't think there's anything apart from, like I say, police procedurals, because they require far too much work in research.
Yeah.
And hard science fiction, because again, you've got to get the science right, and I wasn't that good at it at school. But I pretty much will try my hand at everything. I've written Doctor Who fan fiction. I've written ghost stories.
Yeah.
So there's nothing really that I would say I would never have a go at.
Never take a dabble at.
It's all just, yeah. I like to. I mean, last year for Authors at the Armories, part of it was to put, for the anthology, was to just give 500 words of your work in progress. And I had about 4 to choose from that were all completely different. So it was like, okay, which one am I most likely to? I don't know. I literally closed my eyes and did the
and just went, this one will do.
Yeah. So it is. I've got romances on. I've even got a young adult short story that I did for an anthology that I am tempted to make into a little series of its own. I think I would have to write that under a pen name though, because it wouldn't tie in with a lot of my other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we've gone from writing mafia to young adult. Although saying that, I mean, let's face it, the youngsters grow up far quicker than I did. So they're probably already reading the others anyway. Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just I got parents don't find out.
Yeah.
Surviving off of Wattpad and AO3 at the grand old age of 13 was traumatizing.
Yeah. Even I was reading stuff and I was like, should I be reading this? Is this a thing?
Definitely not. Am I having a good time? Yes, I am.
Absolutely. And then I think I read like my first dirt romance at like 15, 16.
Yeah, but again, you see, it's new technology makes it so much more accessible. I'm a lot older than you ladies, so when I was growing up, you had to go to the library, and you had a librarian watching to see which section you were going into. So, yeah.
There
were no Kindles then.
No.
Don't think I can survive without mine now. It's like permanently attached to me.
It's my emotional support Kindle.
It is.
Where are we up to?
Number 6.
Who is your favourite character that you've written so far?
Oh dear, it's a hard one. It's between two. And it's between my two of my bad boys. It's my main character Caesar in Paying His Debts. Like I said, that he just, in my head, he would be a Bond villain. He's dark, dangerous, but downright sexy. Then my other one is a character called Wend that's in my Queen of Ages trilogy, and he's the bad guy in there, and he is vicious. He's at the mid. It's weird because he actually dies part way through the first book, But I say to people, don't worry, it's fantasy.
It's
Nobody
fine.
has to stay dead. Nobody has to stay dead. You never know what's coming. But he was a character I didn't expect to start to feel. I cried when I killed him.
Oh.
I didn't expect to feel that upset, but I cried when I killed him. He had to die, but I cried when I did it. So, but he may get his own redemption.
Yeah.
He may get a redemption arc.
That's nice for fantasy, though, isn't it? Because there's always a way to bring someone back.
Bring them back.
Yeah.
And then you go from reading fantasy to the contemporary and you're like, but this one's died now. It can't come back.
This one's truly dead. What do I do? There's nothing worse. There's nothing worse when your favourite character dies.
Nope.
Well, I mean, technology keeps going the way it's going. They'll find a way to bring them back. There'll be clones and all sorts in years to come.
Yeah. God help us.
Just get another one out of the cupboard.
Boyfriends into real people.
Imagine. I wouldn't want to do it myself.
Nope. I would be scared.
Yeah.
So we are up to our final question now, and it actually has nothing to do with writing. Do you have any hobbies outside of writing?
Well, I like going for my horse therapy. I had a friend that has horses, and a few years ago she said to me, "Oh, have you seen my latest rescue?" And she was telling me how she couldn't do anything with it, and I went up there, and this horse that was terrified of everybody walked straight up to me.
Oh.
And I had 3 years with her until we lost her through liver cancer. Oh. However, she left me with a beautiful foal.
Oh.
Because it was buy one, get one free. She came with a baby on board. Now, unfortunately, we couldn't keep Baby because of the land situation. However, Baby is actually at a riding school. And I get to go visit Baby as often as I want her.
Oh.
And Baby is now coming up to 5. Has a whole gang of little girls that totally adore her and constantly send me TikTok videos of them jumping on her, and she's a real life unicorn because she's white.
Oh.
So yeah. And that's where I go, especially when I feel like, everything's getting because I work in retail as my day job. And it gets stressful, and we need to get, you need to get away, and it's cheaper than therapy. Horses are still cheaper than therapy. Yeah. So I go up, my friend takes me up there, we go up, we mess about with all the horses for an afternoon, and it sort of just like resets my mental compass and lets me get back to focusing on writing again.
I love that.
Yeah. I think everyone needs that type of that way of escaping, especially when sort of like working in either like retail, hospitality, or anything that's sort of like a quite a high taxing job. Being able to have that sort of like break and being able to sort of reset your social battery and then just be able to come back to it and feel refreshed.
I mean, the other thing is there's something quite spiritual as well about the bond with horses. It's a bond completely different to any other animal I've ever sort of been attached to. And I think it's because cats and dogs are all predators.
Yeah.
But a horse is a prey animal, and for a horse to give you its trust is a completely different dynamic. And it teaches you a lot about life as well, spending time with horses. It helps you look at things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
That is so nice.
It really is. I used to love going horse riding when I was little. I've not been in a very long time though. But thank you so much for talking with us today. It's been absolutely lovely. being able to have a natter and learn a little bit more about you as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been lovely coming on and having a chat,
No,
and hopefully I'll see you at the event and
yes,
get to meet you in person.
You won't be able to miss us. We'll be running around with cameras and lights and microphones and coming to pester everyone. So.
And my hair will be dyed, so I'll be the one with the bright purple hair at that point.
So
I'm hoping that mine will have a refresh by that point and I won't be slowly fading. So
we'll get there.
slowly we'll get there. I am just going to do a little bit of a closing spiel because I've gone back to edit a couple of the videos and I've noticed we haven't done a closer, so I've had to film it externally. It's a bit of a jump scare at the end because it's just me.
Hello.
Pretty much. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Sinister Chapters Podcast. You can listen to our entire backlog if you really want to listen to us natter a little bit more about books or chat with a few more authors. We have loads of content for you to listen to. We cannot wait to see you next week. But for now, bye-bye.
Bye.